Every night, the maid stayed late for the lonely millionaire, until one day. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. The mansion was quiet in the kind of way that didn't feel peaceful at all, more like the air was holding its breath. It was close to midnight, the hour when the rest of the city slept, but Maria Alvarez pushed open the heavy oak door with her usual soft knock. She carried a small tray, a cup of chamomile tea steaming faintly, its scent rising in the cold, still room. She moved carefully, her footsteps barely a whisper on the marble floor. She had been the night maid for only 3 weeks, yet she already knew this part of the house better than her own tiny apartment. And she knew the man sitting alone near the dim fireplace even better, not through words, but through silence. Adrian Hayes, millionaire, real estate mogul, and the loneliest man she had ever seen. Every night, she found him like this, shoulders tense beneath a gray sweater, elbows on his knees, his eyes fixed on some point far beyond the flames. The doctors called it late-night panic disorder. The newspapers called it the price of power. Maria simply called it heartbreak. "Sir, I brought your tea," she said gently. Her voice barely broke the stillness. Adrian didn't look up right away, just drew a slow breath like someone climbing out of a deep place. When he finally lifted his head, his eyes were tired, too tired for a man who had everything. "Thank you, Maria," he murmured. "You can stay a moment." He always said that, soft, careful, like he was afraid the words might scare her away. And every night, she stayed. She set the tray down and took the seat across from him, close enough for him to feel another human presence, but far enough to respect the invisible wall he lived behind. "Rough night?" she asked quietly. Adrian let out a shaky exhale. "Same as always," he said. I closed my eyes and it felt like. He stopped himself, jaw tightening. Maria didn't push. She never did. She had learned quickly that this man, for all his wealth, held his memories like wounds, too fragile to touch. Instead, she reached for the lamp beside him and turned the dial until the amber light washed softly over the room. His breathing eased. It always did. "Better?" she asked. "Yeah," he whispered. "Better." That one word warmed her more than the fireplace. She didn't know everything about him, but she saw the signs. The sleepless nights. The trembling hands. The guilt he carried like a shadow. Something had broken him long before she came into this house. And she had no idea yet that her presence, her routine, her quiet steadiness, was slowly stitching something back together inside him. Tonight, though, something was different. When Maria reached for the teacup to hand it to him, she noticed his hand hovering halfway, trembling, not with fear this time, but hesitation. "Maria," his voice cracked, barely audible. She froze, eyes lifting to meet his. It was the first time he had said her name with that kind of softness. "You don't have to stay if you're tired," he said, though his eyes told another story. "Please don't go." Maria gave him a small, warm smile. "I'm not tired," she whispered. "I'll stay." And as the clock ticked into the first minutes of a new day, neither of them knew yet that this simple ritual, this quiet, nightly act of comfort, was about to unravel a truth buried deep inside the walls of this mansion, a truth that would change everything. Maria returned to work the next night with a quiet determination that surprised even her. After weeks of seeing Adrian Hayes struggle through the darkest hours, something had shifted. His voice sang her name, the way his hand trembled toward hers, the way he looked almost relieved when she stayed. It left a feeling in her chest she did not dare name. But she knew he needed her, and not in the way people gossiped about wealthy men needing company. No, his need was simpler, more fragile, like a man clinging to the last piece of solid ground after a long fall. When she stepped into the mansion again, the security lights cast soft pools of gold on the polished floors. Everything looked the same, yet she felt the difference immediately. It was in the air, a tension that was not fear but anticipation. She carried the tray as always, chamomile tea, 2 ginger cookies he rarely touched, and a small towel warmed under the kitchen heater. She found him exactly where she expected, sitting near the fireplace, hands clasped tightly together, knuckles pale. Tonight, however, he lifted his head the moment he heard her footsteps. "You are back," he murmured. It was barely more than a breath, but the relief in it was unmistakable. "Of course I am," Maria replied gently. "I said I would stay." She placed the tray down and noticed right away that he was still wearing the same sweater from the night before. His hair looked slightly more unkempt, and there were faint shadows under his eyes, darker than usual. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked softly. Adrian gave a small, humorless laugh. "A little. Maybe 1 hour. I thought I heard something in the hallway. Probably nothing. But once I woke up, I could not fall back asleep." Maria frowned slightly. The mansion was large, yes, but it was also heavily secured. The idea of him being startled by a noise was unusual. She made a mental note without letting it show on her face. Instead, she handed him the warm towel. "Hold this for a moment. It helps calm the nerves." His fingers brushed hers as he took it, and again, she felt something in him steady, almost as if her presence anchored him. For a moment, he stared at the towel, then at her. "You always know what to do," he whispered. "I grew up caring for others. It becomes instinct." Maria smiled softly, but her heart tightened as she said it. She rarely talked about her past, yet something about Adrian made honesty easier. Maybe it was because he never judged. Maybe because he listened even in silence. Slowly, he lifted the tea and took a sip. "You make the nights less unbearable," he said. Maria felt her breath catch, but she responded lightly. "Well, that is part of the job." He looked at her, and for a heartbeat she thought he might smile. But instead his expression grew distant, heavy with memory. "It used to be different," he said. "Before the accident." She did not interrupt. She let him speak at his own pace. "I used to sleep easily. I used to wake up without fear. I used to feel safe in this house." His gaze shifted toward the staircase that led to the private quarters. "But now it feels like every shadow is watching me." Maria followed his eyes, feeling an unexpected chill. "Adrian," she said softly, "you are not alone." The words seemed to strike him deeply. He inhaled slowly, as if absorbing them into a place long starved for comfort. Then he said something she would think about for days. "Maria, do you think I am losing my mind?" She moved closer, careful not to cross any boundaries, and sat beside him, not touching, but close enough for him to feel her steadiness. "No," she said firmly. "You are not losing your mind. You are grieving. You are exhausted. And you are carrying too much alone." A long silence followed, thick but gentle. The logs crackled softly in the fireplace. Adrian lowered his head into his hands. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. "Sometimes I feel like the night is trying to swallow me." Maria reached over and turned the lamp up another notch, letting the amber glow fill the corners of the room. "Then let us fight the night together," she whispered. And in that moment, something in the mansion shifted, a soft creak somewhere on the second floor, too sharp and deliberate to be the house settling. Maria heard it. Adrian heard it. Their eyes met. The night, it seemed, was no longer quiet at all. The sound from upstairs lingered in the air like a held breath, sharp enough to raise the tiny hairs on Maria's arms. Adrian froze, his eyes fixed on the ceiling as though he expected something, or someone, to appear at any moment. Maria waited a beat, listening. The mansion often made noises at night, with settling, temperature shifting, pipes adjusting, but this sound had intention behind it, a slow creak that felt like weight shifting on a floorboard. "Do you hear that often?" Maria asked quietly. Adrian swallowed hard. "Sometimes. At first I thought it was my imagination, but lately, I am not so sure." His voice trembled, and for a moment he looked as lost as the first night she had found him by the fire. Maria stood slowly. "Would you like me to check?" "No," he said quickly, reaching out instinctively before stopping himself. "No. Stay here. Please." His hand hovered in midair before he pulled it back, embarrassed by the reaction. Maria sat again, careful to give him space while still grounding him with her presence. She knew fear when she saw it, real fear that came not from shadows but from memories that refused to let go. "It is all right," she said softly. "Whatever it was, it is gone now." Adrian nodded, though his breathing remained uneven. She poured him a bit more tea. He took it with a quiet, "Thank you," and held the warm cup between his palms like he was afraid of letting go. Maria watched him a moment. She saw how tightly he clutched his own hands, how he swallowed as if pushing down something heavy. She knew the signs of a panic surge before it broke. "Adrian," she said gently, "look at the lamp." He shifted his gaze to the amber glow. She turned the dial slightly, letting the warm light grow fuller, richer. "Focus on the color. Breathe with it." He closed his eyes, inhaling shakily as the light flickered across his face. "In and out," she said, matching her breathing to his. Slowly, the tension across his shoulders loosened. "You always know what to do," he whispered. "Only because I have seen these moments before," she said. "My mother used to have panic attacks when I was young. I learned how to help her through them." Adrian's eyes opened gently, something soft and wounded inside them. "You had to take care of her?" "Yes. My father left when I was a child. My mother worked long hours, and when she got sick, I helped however I could. Cleaning, cooking, calming her when things were difficult." For a moment, the mansion did not feel so cold. Their shared silence was not empty, it was understanding. "I am sorry," Adrian murmured. "You deserved better than that." Maria smiled faintly. "We do what we must for the people we love." Adrian looked down at the tea in his hands, his voice barely a whisper. "I had people I loved, and I lost them." She felt that sentence in her chest like a small fracture. "You do not have to tell me," she said softly, but he shook his head. "No, I should at least once." He drew a breath that seemed to scrape his lungs. "The accident happened 2 years ago. My brother and his wife were driving home from a charity event. It was raining heavily, and the car went off the road." His throat tightened. "I was supposed to be with them. I canceled at the last minute because of work." Maria touched the back of his hand lightly, a simple gesture of reassurance. "You could not have known," she said. Adrian let out a shaky breath. "I keep thinking, maybe it was not just an accident." Maria's heartbeat quickened. "What makes you think that?" He hesitated before answering. "Because of what the investigators told me. There were signs that the brake system might have been tampered with, but nothing conclusive. And then, after they died, strange things began happening in the house. Sounds at night. Documents moved. Doors unlocked when I knew I had locked them." Maria felt a cold ripple pass through her body. "Have you talked to anyone about this?" "No," he said, voice low. "People already think I am unstable. If I start talking about shadows in my own house." He did not finish the sentence. Maria sat a little straighter. "You are not imagining things, Adrian." "I heard that sound too." His eyes lifted to hers, a mixture of gratitude and fear. "So what do I do?" Maria took a steady breath, her voice calm, certain. "For tonight, you rest. I will stay until the morning. And tomorrow, we look deeper." For the first time since she met him, he looked like a man who believed safety was possible again. But above them, somewhere on the second floor, another floorboard creaked, as if someone had just moved out of sight. The morning after the mysterious sound, Maria moved through the mansion with sharper awareness, paying attention to details she might have ignored before. The staff began arriving for their daytime shifts, and the familiar rhythm of footsteps, rolling carts, and quiet morning chatter filled the halls. Yet beneath it all, the house carried a tension that did not exist the day before, as if the walls themselves had overheard the fear that had cracked open during the night. Maria checked on Adrian as the sun rose. He had finally fallen asleep on the couch near the fireplace, his breathing slow, and even for the first time since she had met him. The amber lamp still glowed. Beside him, its soft light reflecting across his face in a way that made him look younger, gentler, almost peaceful. She watched him for a moment, feeling a quiet protectiveness settle into her chest, then stepped away to let him rest. By noon, Adrian had woken up, looking more grounded than she had ever seen him. "You stayed," he said softly, his voice rough with sleep. "I told you I would," she answered. He nodded once, as if committing that truth to memory. "There is something I want to show you," he said. He led her to his private study on the second floor, a room she had never entered before. It was large, lined with shelves filled with leather-bound books and framed awards. Yet despite its elegance, the space felt cold and used. He walked to a locked cabinet near the window and retrieved a thick folder filled with reports and photographs. "These are copies of the investigation files," he said quietly. "I asked for them after the accident. They told me it was a mechanical failure during a storm, but some of the early notes suggested something else." He handed her a photograph of the wrecked car. The front end was destroyed, the windshield shattered, and the driver's side crushed inward. "Look at the brake line," he said. Maria leaned in. She did not know much about cars, but even she noticed the clean, unnatural-looking cut along the tubing. "This does not look like wear and tear," she said. Adrian nodded grimly. That is what the first investigator thought. But the case was mysteriously reassigned, and the final report changed everything. Maria felt the weight of his words settle across her shoulders. Who would do something like this? Adrian looked toward the hallway, his expression darkening. "I have my suspicions," he said, "but no proof." He paused before adding quietly, "My half-brother, Nathan, never agreed with how the inheritance was divided. After the accident, he started visiting more often, offering to take over parts of the company. And every time he was in this house, things began to shift." Maria thought of the creaking floorboards, the moved documents, the unlocked drawers. "Do you think he comes here at night?" she asked. Adrian hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I think someone does. And he is the only one with a key besides the staff." Maria felt a chill ripple down her spine. She walked toward the window, scanning the property. The grounds were calm, the long driveway empty except for a few parked staff vehicles. Everything looked normal, but normal felt like a disguise. "We need evidence," she said. "Something that shows what is happening." Adrian rubbed a hand across his forehead. "I installed cameras after the first incident, but the system crashed last week. The technician said it was a power glitch. Or someone caused it," Maria murmured. He looked at her with a mixture of fear and admiration. "You are braver than I am," he said. She shook her head. "No, I just care enough not to look away." Before he could answer, a soft knock echoed through the hallway. Maria and Adrian exchanged a quick glance before he called, "Come in." The door opened, and the longtime house manager, Mr. Harris, stepped inside. His expression was polite, but something about the tightness in his jaw made Maria's instincts tighten. "Sir," Harris said, "I heard you were up early. I wanted to check if you needed anything." Adrian stiffened. "No, we are fine." Harris glanced briefly at the open folder on the desk, his eyes flicking over the accident photos before he masked his reaction and stepped back. "Very well. Please let me know if you need assistance." He closed the door behind him with a soft click. Maria waited until his footsteps faded. "He saw the files," she whispered. "I know," Adrian said, his jaw set. Maria felt every nerve in her body sharpen. The house was no longer just a place of silence and grief. It was a place where someone moved unseen, someone hiding in the shadows of the very walls meant to protect Adrian. And now that they were looking for answers, that someone would not stay quiet for long. For the rest of the afternoon, Maria could not shake the image of Mr. Harris's eyes lingering on the accident files. Something about his reaction had unsettled her deeply, as if he knew more than he let on. Adrian tried to go about his day with forced normalcy, answering calls, reading emails, pretending everything was under control, but Maria saw the tension in his jaw, the way his fingers drummed the desk when he was lost in thought. By early evening, the mansion grew quiet again as most of the staff left for the night, leaving only the skeleton crew and the soft hum of lights echoing through the halls. Maria brewed a fresh pot of chamomile tea, hoping it would calm Adrian before another restless night. When she entered the living room, she found him standing near the fireplace, staring at the crackling flames the same way he had done the night she met him. But this time his shoulders were stiff with something sharper than fear. "I keep thinking about Harris," he said, not turning around. "He has served my family for years. He was close to my father. He was close to my brother. And he was one of the first people to arrive at the scene of the accident." Maria set the tea tray down gently. "Do you trust him?" Adrian exhaled slowly. "I used to. Completely. But now, I do not know what to believe." Maria stepped closer, her voice steady. "Fear clouds judgment. Let us look at what we know, not what we feel." Adrian turned toward her, his expression heavy. "I wish it were that simple." She gave him the warm towel again, a grounding gesture he had begun to rely on. He held it tightly, drawing slow breaths. "Maybe we should search the second floor," Maria suggested cautiously. "If someone has been coming into the house at night, there might be signs." Adrian's eyes widened slightly. "You mean tonight?" "We need answers," she said firmly. "If something is happening in this house, we cannot keep pretending it is in your head." His gaze softened with a tenderness he rarely allowed to show. "You should not put yourself in danger for me." Maria shook her head. "I am not afraid of the dark, Adrian." He looked at her for a long, waited moment, then finally nodded. All right, he said quietly. We will check after midnight. The hours crawled by slowly as evening melted into night. Adrian barely spoke, pacing the living room, glancing at the clock every few minutes. Maria busied herself cleaning the kitchen, organizing the pantry, anything to keep her nerves from tightening. Midnight came, and the mansion fell into the deep silence of sleeping walls. Adrian dimmed the lights, leaving only the glow of the amber lamp behind them as they moved toward the staircase. Step by careful step, they climbed to the second floor, the wooden railing smooth under Maria's fingertips as she followed close behind him. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched long and shadowed, lined with closed doors that seemed to watch them pass. This way, Adrian whispered, pointing to the corridor leading to the guest rooms. They walked slowly, listening for anything unusual. At first there was nothing. Only the quiet thrum of the air vents and the soft creaks of the old structure settling for the night. Then Maria noticed something. Adrian, she whispered, pointing at the floor. Near the third guest room, a small smear of dirt streaked across the polished wood, faint but visible under the hall light. That was not here yesterday, she said. Adrian crouched to look closer. Someone stepped here recently. They followed the faint trail until it stopped near a door Maria had never seen open before. It was an old storage room, its brass handle worn with age. Adrian hesitated, then slowly reached for the knob. To their surprise, the door opened with a soft click. Inside, dust coated everything in sight, but one thing stood out immediately. The window latch was unlocked. Adrian's breath hitched. I have not opened this window in years. Maria moved closer. The latch was scratched, fresh metal marks exposed. Someone forced it, she said. Someone climbed in. Adrian backed away, a tremor in his voice. Why would anyone do that? Before Maria could answer, a faint thud sounded from the far end of the hall. They both froze. The noise was soft, deliberate, too close to ignore. Maria felt her heartbeat rise, but she steadied herself. We are not alone up here, she whispered. Adrian swallowed, fear flickering in his eyes. Maria, we should go back downstairs. But before either of them could move, the hallway light flickered once, then dimmed to a low hum, leaving them in a thick, breathless half-darkness. Maria reached for Adrian's arm, her voice barely audible. Someone is watching us. And somewhere in the shadows of the mansion, a slow, quiet footstep answered her. The footstep echoed softly down the hallway, a slow and deliberate sound that made every muscle in Maria's body tighten. Adrian took a sharp breath beside her, and she felt the tremor in his arm when she steadied him. The dim hallway lights flickered again, not fully darkening, but dipping low enough that every shadow stretched longer across the walls. Maria, Adrian whispered, we should go. Now. She nodded, but she kept her eyes fixed on the far end of the corridor where the sound had come from. The silence that followed was suffocating, thick with the kind of fear that made every second stretch longer than it should. Maria took a step backward, guiding Adrian with her, her hand firm around his wrist. They moved slowly, careful not to make a sound, but before they reached the stairs, another noise broke the quiet. A soft metallic clink, like something small had dropped onto the wooden floor. Adrian froze. Maria whispered, do not look back, but she could already tell he had. His breath caught in his throat. There is something by the door, he whispered. She turned her head just enough to see a faint glint on the floor near the guest room at the end of the hall. Something small, something metal. They did not dare approach it, so they kept moving until they reached the top of the stairs. Halfway down, Adrian stopped abruptly, gripping the railing. Maria, he whispered, look. She followed his gaze to the foyer below. The security panel near the front door was blinking red. It had never blinked red before. The system is disarmed, Adrian said. Someone turned it off manually. Maria felt a chill move through her, deeper than fear, something closer to certainty. Someone is inside this house right now, she said. They reached the bottom of the stairs as quietly as possible and moved into the living room, the only place in the mansion that felt remotely safe. The amber lamp still glowed on the side table, its soft light a stark contrast to the darkness pressing against the windows. Adrian closed the living room door gently and locked it. This should give us a little time, he said, though his voice trembled. Maria scanned the room, her mind racing. We need to check the cameras, she said. Even if the system is down, Sometimes local storage saves footage automatically. Adrian nodded, then moved to the small cabinet where the backup monitor was kept. His hands shook as he entered the code. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the screen flickered to life. At first, the feed showed only static across several camera thumbnails, but one camera, the one in the west hallway, came into focus. Maria leaned closer. The feed was grainy, but the image was clear enough to make her blood run cold. A figure stood at the end of the hall, not moving, not pacing, just standing, half in shadow, half illuminated by the faint glow of a night light. The man's posture was rigid, his head tilted slightly toward the camera, like he knew exactly where it was. Adrian inhaled sharply. "That is a man," he whispered. "Someone is in the house." Maria's voice was steady, even though she felt her own heart pounding. "We need security. Call them now." Adrian reached for his phone, but before he could dial, the figure on the screen turned slowly, revealing part of his face. Maria's stomach flipped. She knew that profile. She had seen it in framed photographs in the hallway, pictures from family events, celebrations, and charity galas. "Adrian," she whispered, "that is Nathan." Adrian went completely still, his face draining of color. "No," he said, almost too softly to hear. "He cannot be." But the man in the video was unmistakably Nathan Hayes, his half-brother, his expression dark and focused. And then, as if the camera had caught his attention, Nathan lifted his hand and pressed a finger to his lips. A silent warning. A threat. A command to stay quiet. The screen flickered, then cut to black. Adrian stumbled backward, gripping the edge of the sofa to steady himself. "He was here last night," he whispered. "He has been coming here for weeks." Maria moved closer, placing a firm, steadying hand on his arm. "This is no accident," she said. "Nathan is looking for something. We're trying to scare you. Or worse." Adrian's eyes filled with something between horror and clarity. "He wants the company," he said softly. "He always wanted the company. And if I disappear—" He did not finish the sentence. He did not have to. Maria squeezed his arm. "You are not disappearing. Not on my watch." But even as she said it, the house creaked again, a long, slow groan from somewhere above them. And both of them understood one thing with absolute clarity. The danger was no longer a distant suspicion. It was already in the walls, already moving toward them. The house felt alive in the worst possible way, every creak and shift carrying the weight of someone else's presence. Maria stood with Adrian in the dim glow of the amber lamp, both of them listening to the faint noises coming from the upper floor. Adrian's breathing was uneven, his face pale as he tried to process what they had just seen on the security feed. "Nathan was here," he whispered. "He was really here." Maria kept her voice steady, even as her pulse hammered in her ears. "He is not just here, Adrian. He is moving through this house like he knows every inch of it. And he is not trying to hide anymore." Adrian gripped the back of the sofa. "He must want to intimidate me, or push me into a breakdown. If I am declared unfit to run the company, he would inherit everything." Maria shook her head slowly. "This is more than intimidation. He disabled your security system. He climbed through a locked window. He walked the hallways last night. This is planned." Adrian swallowed hard. "Then what does he want tonight?" Before Maria could answer, they heard it again, a slow, deliberate step above them. Not hurried, not afraid, confident. Maria's eyes met Adrian's. "We cannot stay down here waiting for him to come to us," she whispered. "We need to call the police." Adrian reached for his phone, but the screen stayed black. He pressed the power button again. "Nothing. It is dead," he said, voice cracking. "I charged it an hour ago." Maria pulled her own phone from her pocket. The screen flickered, then went dark. "He jammed the signals," she said. "He came prepared." Adrian stepped back, panic rising. "Maria, he could be right outside the door." She took a slow breath and placed her hand on his arm. "Then listen to me. We are not going to panic. Panic is what he is counting on. We need to be smart." The next sound made them both jump, a soft scrape against the hallway wall just outside the living room. "Close. Too close." Adrian's voice trembled. "What is he doing?" Maria kept her eyes fixed on the door. "He is trying to see how long it takes for us to break." Adrian's hands shook. "How are you so calm?" "I am not calm," she whispered. "But I am not letting him win." The doorknob rattled suddenly, twisting sharply before stopping. The sound cut through the air like a blade. Adrian stumbled back, his breath catching. "He is trying to get in." Maria stepped forward instinctively, putting herself between Adrian and the door. He will not, she said firmly, even if part of her was not entirely sure. Another sound followed, a light tapping, almost playful, like Nathan was reminding them he was still there. Adrian covered his mouth with his hand, panic showing in every line of his face. He wants me to lose my mind, Adrian whispered. He wants me to fall apart. Maria turned to him, her voice fierce and low. Listen to me. You are not losing your mind. You are not falling apart. You are seeing the truth. And he knows it. The tapping stopped. Silence fell again. Then, slowly, the footsteps retreated down the hallway. Not leaving, just repositioning. Maria listened carefully until the sounds faded fully. This is our chance, she whispered. We need to move. The kitchen has a landline. Adrian nodded shakily. Yes, all right. They unlocked the living room door and slipped into the hallway. The house felt colder, darker. Every shadow seemed deeper than it should be. They moved quickly but quietly, Maria leading the way. Halfway to the kitchen, she heard a faint rustle behind them. She spun around, but the hall was empty. Keep going, she whispered. They reached the kitchen door, and Maria gently pushed it open. The room was dark except for the soft glow of the refrigerator display. They stepped inside, and Maria moved toward the wall-mounted landline phone. Her fingers curled around the receiver, but before she could lift it, a voice came from the doorway behind them. Smooth, cold, familiar. Going somewhere, brother? Adrian froze. Maria turned slowly. Nathan stood at the threshold, his silhouette sharp against the faint hallway light. His arms crossed casually, as though he had simply walked into a room for a late-night drink. His eyes locked onto Adrian, a slow, unsettling smile spreading across his face. You look surprised, Nathan said softly. But you should not be. After all, I told you I would take what was mine. Maria stepped subtly in front of Adrian, her voice calm but firm. Nathan, this does not have to go any further. Nathan's gaze shifted to her, his smile thinning. The maid. Always in the way. And with that single sentence, Maria understood one thing with absolute clarity. Nathan did not come to scare them. He came to finish what he started. Maria held her ground in front of Adrian as Nathan stepped fully into the kitchen, the faint refrigerator light casting a cold glow across his face. His expression was calm, disturbingly calm, like a man walking through his own home rather than a man who had broken in during the night with intentions he refused to say out loud. Adrian's voice shook as he tried to speak. Nathan, what are you doing here? Why are you doing this? Nathan tilted his head slightly, almost amused. Do you really not understand? After everything our father built, after everything that should have been mine, you think I would simply stand aside and let you run this empire? Adrian's breath hitched. Empire? This is our family's legacy. It was never meant to be a weapon. Nathan gave a short laugh, sharp and humorless. Legacy is just a prettier word for power, and you were too weak to see that. Maria stepped forward, her voice steady. Nathan, whatever you want, this is not the way to get it. You tampered with the brake lines. You came into this house at night. You were trying to push him over the edge. Nathan's eyes flicked to her, and something darkened in his stare. You talk too much, he said quietly. You should have stayed in the servants' quarters where you belong. Maria did not flinch. And you should have walked away the moment Adrian survived that accident, she said. But you could not. Because you are the one who is afraid. Nathan's jaw tightened, a flicker of anger crossing his face, proving she had struck the truth. He stepped closer, each footstep measured. Afraid? No. I am cleaning up a mess. And unfortunately for you, you walked into the middle of it. Adrian moved in front of Maria instinctively, his voice breaking. Nathan, please. Stop this before it goes any further. We can talk to the board, restructure the company, do whatever you want. But not like this. You still do not get it, Nathan said. This is not about negotiation. This is about inevitability. He reached into his jacket pocket, and Maria's breath caught. But instead of a weapon, he pulled out a small device with a blinking light. Security system jammers, he said, holding it up between his fingers. Simple, effective, and perfect for moments like this. With a flick of his wrist, he crushed it under his shoe. Maria, listen carefully. Somewhere in the house, she heard the faint click of a system rebooting. Nathan did not notice. The company will be mine, he said. And once people hear that you had another panic episode and fled the house in the middle of the night, leaving everything behind, They will understand that you were unfit to lead. Maria realized his plan fully then. He was not here to kill Adrian. He was here to destroy him completely, mentally and socially. You want to erase him? She whispered. You want to make the world think he collapsed. Nathan smiled slowly. Collapse is a kind word for what will happen next. But the moment he said it, a loud beep echoed through the kitchen. Nathan spun toward the sound, just as the security system lights on the wall turned from red to green. Maria's heart raced. The system rebooted. It was back online. And if the system was online, then someone, somewhere, would see the alerts. Nathan's face twisted with sudden rage. What did you do? Adrian backed away, pulling Maria behind him. You did this, he said. When you crushed the jammer. Nathan lunged forward, but before he could reach them, blinding white lights flashed through the kitchen windows. Car engines rumbled outside. Doors slammed. Shouting filtered through the air. Nathan stopped, his expression shifting from fury to panic. Maria whispered urgently. The security team is here. Nathan turned toward the back door, his breath fast and sharp. This is not over, he hissed. I will not let either of you ruin what is mine. He bolted into the darkness just as heavy boots thundered up the porch steps. Officers and security staff burst through the doors, flashlights cutting through the room. Maria felt Adrian tremble beside her, but this time the fear was mixed with overwhelming relief. Nathan was gone, and they were finally safe. Or so they thought. For the first time in weeks, the mansion no longer felt like a creature holding its breath. Officers swept through every hallway and searched every room with methodical precision while the security team examined the rebooted system, confirming that Nathan had indeed been inside for multiple nights. Maria stayed close to Adrian as he answered the officers' questions, his voice unsteady but honest. He told them everything, from the strange noises to the brake line evidence to the footage that had caught Nathan standing in the hallway like a shadow made of intent. The officers listened intently, their expressions shifting from doubt to seriousness as the pieces came together. When the house was finally declared secure, Adrian sank onto the living room sofa, exhausted in every possible way. Maria sat beside him, the amber lamp glowing softly next to them as if it had been waiting for this moment. It is over, she said gently. Adrian stared at the floor for a long moment before shaking his head slowly. No, it is not over. Not yet. But it is beginning to feel like something I can face instead of something I run from. Maria felt a swell of relief and something warmer, deeper. She reached for his hand, not as a caretaker now, but as someone who had chosen to stand beside him through every terrifying moment. He squeezed her fingers softly. If you had not been here tonight, he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Maria gave a quiet smile. You are stronger than you think, Adrian. He looked at her then, really looked, with a clarity she had never seen in him before. Maybe, but I am stronger because of you. The following days unfolded slowly, like dawn creeping over a dark horizon. The police issued a warrant for Nathan, and the evidence collected from the mansion, the security footage, and the brake line analysis formed a clear case of conspiracy and attempted harm. Nathan's influence over the company board dissolved the moment his actions became public. Adrian met with the board accompanied by legal counsel. And for the first time in a long time, he spoke with confidence, his voice steady as he set the record straight about the company's future. Word spread, and soon the media knew the truth, not the distorted version Nathan had tried to craft. Adrian Hayes was not unstable. He was the victim of a calculated plan designed to break him. And he had survived. Through it all, Maria stayed by his side. Not because it was her job, but because she could not imagine walking away from the man she had watched battle his own shadows night after night. One evening, about a week after the incident, Adrian invited her to the garden behind the mansion. The sun was setting, casting warm streaks of orange and pink. Across the sky, the air felt lighter than it had in months. Maria followed him to a small wooden bench beneath an old oak tree, the same place his mother used to sit according to the stories he had told her during the quiet hours. He carried something in his hands, and when they sat down, he turned it over slowly. It was the amber lamp, the same lamp she had used night after night to anchor him through panic attacks and memories too painful to hold. I want you to have this, he said. Maria blinked in surprise. Adrian, this is yours. This helped you through. You helped me through, he said softly, placing the lamp in her hands. This is just the light. You were the one who brought me back every night. His voice held no hesitation now, only certainty. I do not want those nights to define my life anymore. And I do not want to face the future alone. Maria felt her breath catch as she met his gaze. What are you saying? Adrian took a slow breath that no longer trembled. I am saying that you are the reason I can sleep again. You are the reason I believe healing is possible. And I would like to build something real with you. Something honest. Something that is not chained to fear. The quiet breeze rustled the leaves above them. Maria felt warmth fill her chest, steady and unmistakable. I would like that too, she whispered. Adrian reached for her hand, and this time, when she took it, the moment felt like the final step out of a long, shadowed corridor. The mansion behind them stood silent, no longer a place of fear, but a home reclaimed. And as they sat together beneath the soft glow of the fading sun, healing did not feel like a distant dream anymore. It felt like the beginning of something new, something worthy, something safe. It felt like the first real peace either of them had known in years.